Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 214,
Yes.
August 8th, 2024. My name's John Kelsey. I'll be your moderator. I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes. I'm going to be leaving spot on the end of the hour to get to the train station because we take our display apart this later this morning, and we have to get out of there with the work and the plinths and display materials that we made. So it's going to be kind of a military operation. I'm going to go. I've got all the boxes for the work in my car. Barry's going to take care of the plinths. Well, we've got about 6 people who are coming to pack their own stuff and stay and help. Another 6 who are coming to get their own work, and another dozen who can't make it. So we have to get all that work back to New Holland, or else some of it's coming to my house because people find it easier to get here than to get out there sometimes. So that's happening later this morning. I also wanted a word to anybody who's out there watching this on YouTube. I frequently get YouTube comments saying, "How can I join this coffee hour? How do I do that?" And I can't reply directly to you in those comments. And if I type a reply, I have no idea if you're ever going to see it. So I'm addressing you here, all YouTubers. Yes, you can join this coffee hour. This is sponsored by Lancaster Area Woodturners, and it's a member benefit. And about 2/3 of the people on screen are members. The rest of you are part of the entertainment. I mean, we're going to talk about woodturning, and whatever you want to bring to it, we're happy to have. So it's an open forum. Anybody can join. It's free. It's the same link every week. Once you get on my email list, I send you a reminder around dawn on Thursday morning, and every so often post a list of recent videos. Okay, that's the promo for today. While I hold the floor, I'm going to show you some work before we go on to other people who also have work to show. First of all, I'm going to switch to this camera here. I recently went to one of my favorite museums. It's the New Britain Museum of American Art in Connecticut, and I go there because it's near my daughter's house, so it's an easy thing to do. But it's an absolutely delightful regional museum with an excellent collection of paintings and frequent shows brought in from outside that are just really good. And they've got a little room with some Shaker furniture built in there because this place is near Pittsfield and other places where the Shakers had villages. And every 6 months or so, the exhibit changes a little bit. And I showed you one before of some of the stuff that they had in there, knobs and things on furniture that were mostly turned. And today's little show is handles for tools that the Shakers made, photographed with my phone camera at the New Britain Art Museum earlier this month. I was up there for a party to celebrate the graduation of 3 of my grandchildren, 2 from college and 1 from high school. So it was a very, very merry time in my family, but we still got a museum visit in. And I make a lot of handles. I know a lot of you do too. And the Shakers made a lot of handles. And there's a lot of details in these that are well worth looking at. 3 of these have ferrules, 1 does not. The handles often have inscribed lines. The bulbous shape of these are sewing tools and cutting tools for fabric and leather. The pounce wheel here, the toothed wheel, you see the little 2-incised lines on the handle, and the shape of the handle. That's an absolutely characteristic 18th century handle, 19th century handle. They made thousands and thousands of these. I think Mike Peace probably knows more about how they did it than I do, but I know that they banged them out really fast, and the pattern would have been memorized by the time a guy said it spent more than 2 days in this. Okay, I've got to remember how to make this work to go to the next picture. Yeah. This is a glove darner that you would use this to put inside the fingers of gloves so you could knit up the holes in the gloves. Again, very simple, straightforward wood turner with I think the name of the owner etched on it or engraved on it. So that's that one. These are brush handles. And I noticed that all of the brush handles had the little knob on the end and often with a ribbon tied around it. So the brush could be hung up to get it out of the way where you would need it in the house or in the workshop or whatever the brush was for. A lot of these were clothing brushes that they sold and went out to market, and a lot of them were their own stuff for their own household fittings and setups. This is the handle on a dustpan, again with a little string on it that allows it to be hung up. It has the characteristic double lines. Mike, do you know, would those have been made like with the skew as 2 cuts, or would they have ground a tool that had 2 little points on it just for that purpose? If you're talking, you're muted.
I would think if they made enough of them, they'd probably had a tool with 2 points.
I would say, yeah.
Actually, you could use a D-way beating tool and just touch it and compass that.
Yeah, or the point of your skew.
Or the point of the skew, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if any of these parts of these scoops were turned. I suspect they probably were turned and carved to get to these shapes. I probably sawn blank and then partly turned and partly carved. Whatever, they're very, very attractive. And that's the shoe last down on the bottom with a threaded handle again with the characteristic two lines. And the threaded rod there will expand that into the shoe to help it hold its shape. Keep trying to chair. There you go. This was a terrific little machine. This is a gadget for planing ash splints to uniform thickness. When you're making shaker type chairs, the seats are often woven from the inner bark of ash trees or splints from black ash in particular, and I think some kinds of oak for basketry as well. What you are going to want is a uniform splint, so you could reliably make a nice basket or whatever you were doing with it. So this machine has a knife blade. You can see it down there on the bottom part with I think I should be using my mouse to point at this, with a screw so it's adjustable, and then the two threaded rods that allow the mechanism to be adjusted up and down for thickness. So you got a coarse adjustment and a fine adjustment, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, it looks like it would work brilliantly. I just really like this kind of machine. And the care in the handles, I don't think it matters that one's a little taller than the other. What matters is the flat spots that allow you to get a hold of that and really get a good turn on it. You could even put a wrench on it if you had to, because these threads will ultimately bind up. These threads are into end grain, which is difficult to do. I'm not sure what wood it is, and there's an insert in there. They're not into end grain. They're into the face grain of the lighter colored piece that moves up and down. And it's in a U-shaped channel here in these vertical pillars, I believe. Anyway, very, very interesting and terrific little shaker mechanism. Here's another view of it. Yeah, it confirms what I'm saying, that they're inside grain down through that block. Here's some baskets where they would have used those kind of splints that were made with that machine, along with a long tapered walking stick, turned walking stick. Aside from the bucket, which is fascinating in its own right and with a terrific handle on the bail, this over on the other side is a pincushion, and it has a little clamp with a threaded fitting that you can see through the glass that allows it to clamp on the edge of a table. So a seamstress could have her pincushion right exactly where she wanted it in the sewing room. Again, a very ingenious and very simple little mechanism. I made a lot of this kind of mechanism myself. Largely because I've been looking at this kind of work for 50 years, and it kind of soaks in. Oh yeah, there's a way you could do that. I like little wooden threaded gizmos. This one on the left over here has two threads, one for clamping it to the table, and the other which allows you to change the height of the pincushion itself. And here you can see full on two of the buckets, these stave buckets. I have no idea what they made these for, or what the story is behind them. The writing in the brochure was not very explicit. I couldn't really get any information. I've never seen these buckets before. They're right near Hancock Shaker Village. So the accompanying exhibition, which I don't have any pictures of, was of paintings of scenes at the Shaker Village. Here's some more of the Shaker goods, again with turned handles on these bentwood scoops or bales or whatever they are. It seems to me they did what I've always imagined early woodworkers would do. If you wanted to finish something, the fastest way to get there would be to jam the piece of wood on the lathe and turn it. Lot simpler, a lot quicker, a lot cleaner, a lot more fun than planing or sawing and all the other things we do. Again, brush handles, feather duster handles, with the knob on the end to tie them, characteristic little lines on them. Just beautiful fittings. I see that Dave Potts has posted a link to Rick Baker's camera boom. So there you go. And Rick's available to answer questions about it. He's about to retire from the AAW board, where he's been a stalwart for many years. And a good friend of this club and to the Mid-Atlantic Symposium. He's the chairman of that as well. A very busy guy. Dustpan and broom. Again, the turned handles are what attracted me to these. I think I find a lot to learn in just looking at these handles, and every time I go and turn more handles for tools or something in my own shop, it's informed by what I see in these shaker implements. On the brushes, you can see, especially on this one, the mounting apparatus there of the two turn discs. Those would have been one piece of wood with a hole in it that the handle on the handle itself would tenon right into. No, that's not the right tool. So many buttons to push. These are chalk reels for chalk lines. Again, a turned box with knob on it. I wish they had had one pulled out so we could see more, or one taken apart, but they didn't. But anyway, these are for chalk lines for snapping a line, which is, of course, is essential in building and bandsawing and everything else we do. And here's another brush, again with a handle. This time the handle is integral with the brush body, so it's not tenoned in. So it's all one piece of wood mounted, I guess, from the far end of the brush, handle turned, and probably bored on a drill press, and away you go. Make a brush out of it, however they do that. Again, the show is not all that informative. I think that might be the end of the slideshow. Let me see if there's any more here. Yeah, that's as far as I went with that. So I'm going to end that and come back to me. And while I have the floor, I'm going to carry on for another minute with some summing up of some work I've been doing for a long time. As you know, I make these magnet boxes. I need to switch to this camera. Yeah. Mirrored right to left. It's very hard to get myself in the right place. There's where I want to go. Okay. This is the kind of current box I haven't been making these for a while, and I went back to making them. This is marble wood, which I found at Groff and Groff. And this has 3 magnets around it in the lid and in the lid and in the box body that hold it shut in your purse or pocket. I make it with the top with one kind of detail and the bottom with another kind of detail, so fishing in your pocket or in your bag, you can find the box and you know which way is up. So you can get your meds or your Tic Tacs or whatever it is you carry your box around, the little boxes of stuff around for. And I'm trying for something that's thin and lightweight enough to really do the job, and I'm really happy with this one. The holes for the magnets are a little bit offset, so that it snaps down tight. There's no wobble in there. It's an end grain box, so it's not going to move very much, so the fit is good, but there's a little looseness. You need that with magnet boxes. The figure will line up all the way around in the right orientation. You can see it just travels all the way around, so I'm very happy being able to do that. The top and the bottom, of course, are it's very thin end grain, maybe 1/8 of an inch, 3/16. What I find in a thing like this, when I have it mounted and I'm turning this outside surface, is frequently you get some bounce in here, and it turns up as what I think is smooth on the lathe, turns up to have ripples and bounces in it that come from, I think, the wood itself vibrating because it's thin. And I think I need to learn how to cut these surfaces rather than getting them with a turning tool. This is a slightly thicker box. This one will take anything 5/16 and under. This will take a 1/2 inch or whatever your great big horse-sized pills or your cough lozenges or whatever it is you want to carry. Again, with the 3 magnets, and it snaps closed tight because the magnets are a little offset. And taken from the shakers, I left the line. I scribed the lines to center the magnets, and I left them as part of the design. What I'm unhappy with in this is the flanges here for gripping are still too big and clumsy and not crisply detailed. They're kind of blurry. So I need to work on that and get these to the exact right size so they allow the box to easily be opened by pulling or twisting, which is the preferred way to open these. So that's where I'm at with these. And this is another one I just want to show you. I made these 3 in the course of a couple of days. They take a while to make because it's a lot of diddly fiddly to get the inside. You got a lot of diddly fiddly, a lot of measuring, a lot of careful. I've rigged up a drill on a chuck body or on a tool rest body that allows me to drill a radial hole straight into the work. So that helps a lot. And I've also rigged up a ram so I can use the tool rest to move it incrementally so I can get these holes offset by exactly the perfect amount. Yeah. What I used to make, this is the old ones, the old style ones I used to make. The magnets were the other way. I was burying the magnets down in here. By splitting the wood, you can see the join line here. Installing the magnets, putting the block back together and gluing the box back together. The problem with that is the thickness here. You cannot get this to be thin and delicate because you got to get a magnet in there, and it has to be a big enough magnet to act at a distance because the other mating magnet is buried in the wood, so that they are invisible. So that took a lot of fiddly diddly to get that right, I'll tell you. And I finally got so, and I couldn't get them any smaller or thinner than about this. I think I made one that was smaller. This is about as delicate as they ever got. You can see what the problem is with these. See the magnet glistening down there? You can turn right down into the magnet before you know it. And there you go. Several hours of work and prepping the blank, and you just blew it. So that's why I don't make them that way anymore. I make them with the magnets going this way rather than going this way. And this one here, finally, this is divided into two compartments. I'm an old guy with multiple comorbidities, so I got meds I have to keep track of. And I use this as an everyday thing in my pocket to keep track of whatever I have to take next. Again, the lid is incised with 3 lines, and bottom is smooth, so I can tell which way it is up, and there is a way the grain aligns. This one is cross grain, so it has a lot more movement, and it has to be tighter, and there's still a position in the hot summer muggy weather where it kind of sticks a little bit. So I don't like to make them that way if I can avoid it. But you can get them, it's a little bit thinner. It's the same thing. It's about a 16th thinner than this other one. So I think I can probably learn to make these the same thin as this. And when they're like this, to me, they're better, of course, than metal and plastic boxes that you can buy. So that's my story. Questions and comments?
John, when you drill the holes for the magnet, do you drill both of them at the same time so you've got the lid on it?
No, if you do that, you wind up with you can't get them exact, and you wind up with bounce. You got to have one pulling down on the other, so they need to be offset by roughly a 32nd to somewhere between a 32nd and a 16th of an inch, so that they're pulling down. They're trying to pull down tight. So if you drill them at the same time, you can't achieve that. And this one has to be a little closer to the base, or else this one has to be closer to that end to make that work. So I do that by I bore this one, and then remount the other piece, put it on there, draw through the holes where the holes are, and then adjust the apparatus to be just inside of that mark.
Thanks.
And I'm using finish is Osmo. I'm an Osmo guy now. The finish on these is Waterlocks. The finish on this is Osmo. I like Osmo better, and it's also quicker and easier for me to handle. Anybody else?
John, aren't there several different Osmos out there? Which one?
I have experimented with them all, and I can't tell the difference. On an oily wood, you use the very thin one. It'll penetrate the oil better. There is one called Gloss. I can't ever remember the names, but it's not, to my eye, any more gloss than the one called Top Oil and the one called Matte. When I put them side by side, I'm really hard put to tell the difference. These have only one coat wiped on. I'm gonna wipe on a couple more coats. I think 3 coats wiped on gives you the best finish you're going to get out of it. But 1 coat is actually pretty adequate. It makes a nice finish.
John, do you buff them after you put the Osmo on and it's dried?
No. On a bowl, if I have it in the chuck, I'll buff it on. I'll run the lathe up as high as I can and work at it with a cloth, so that I'm with a paper towel to generate some heat and try and buff that right into the wood. These are wiped on off the lathe. You wipe it on and wipe it off. You give it a minute or two to soak in, but I'm not giving it any kind of 20 minutes or anything like that. I'm following. We had John Wilson on a couple weeks ago, and he showed his comparison between Osmo and Waterlocks. I separated that out as a separate video. You can find it in the list of videos I sent out last week, and also on my channel or the club site. He did a careful study of comparing our two favorite finishes on burl bowls. In the end, he ended up liking Osmo as well. And like me, he's wiping these on 3 applications off the lathe. Wipe it on, look at it for a minute, wipe it off, let it dry overnight.
So no wax later on, just the Osmo.
Yeah, after that, I either take white steel wool to it, or else just a clean shop towel, paper shop rag out of the box, and polish it a bit to get whatever residue and buff and bits of crud that's landed on it overnight. And that seems to do it. I don't see a need to fool around with it anymore. If you go to 4 or 5 coats wiped on that way, you can build Osmo up to a gloss. But I think you need to give it several days between coats once you do that. It starts to it'll get gummy at that, and it has to, they all have half-lives, and it takes longer to cure than we think sometimes. But it does really, once it's cured, as Bert has pointed out, it's a bear to get it off. It's a tough finish.
I've got a question for you, John. When you make these magnet boxes, the precise drilling of those holes, do you do them in a jam chuck and then take the whole jam chuck over to the drill press and have something you mount it on, or do you do it in the lathe, et cetera, et cetera?
I do it on the lathe. I'm using the same number 2 jaws in the chuck, or the small jaws in the chuck that I use for everything. So I've got the workpiece in the jaws. I have not yet removed the tenons. The last thing I do is the tenons off the top and bottom after the magnets are installed. And I have marked in the chuck where it goes right way around, so I get them back in the chuck every time. So I have it in the chuck, and I use the tailstock ram to help position the drill apparatus. The drill apparatus is mounted on a flat tool rest. It's one of those portaline things that allows a gun drill to be moved in and out fairly accurately. And it happened by luck to land dead center when I mounted it on the thing in the first place. And I've got some long rods on it so I can sight it against the lathe ways to get it square. And I bore like I say, I bore the lid piece first so I can see through that hole, then remount the other piece, put the lid piece on it, and draw through the hole to locate where that hole actually is. And then I use the index wheel. I'm using because you've reversed the piece, I might have done this one at 0, 8, and 16, or 24, 8, and 16. When I put this one on and reverse it, it'll be some other hole pattern, but there'll still be 8 holes away. Because it goes mirror image. You can bend your head around that all you want, but that's what it does. So, yeah.
Hey, John, have you tried any chatter tools or spiral patterns or Toby colors?
I've fooled around a little bit with color, not much. I have not tried spiral tools. I seem to get spirals pretty well with my own gouge when I don't pay attention. If you catch and I'm often tempted to leave them in the wood because it's very easy. At the end of hollowing one of these things, the last cut, you're going to get down in the corner. Do I want to pick up a little square end scraper and get in there, or do I want to just use the tip of the gouge? Okay, I'm in there with the tip of the gouge, and the wing catches in the sidewall, and phew, there's a spiral right to the center. I'm often tempted to leave it. But I know I have not done any of those things. I like work that people do with them. I'm more interested in what I can see in the wood, the figure in the wood, the grain pattern. I get a lot of pleasure out of that. And what I'm trying to do is show it. And the sport of trying to have the figure follow all around the box I really want to do that. So I'm looking for woods that'll let me do that. So that if I line it up right and I'm careful to do my diddly fiddly well enough, the box looks like it came out of one piece of wood, which in fact it did. I think that's a nice trick. Okay, looks like I'm done. Thank you.
Hey, John, did you see my text about a new attender today?
No.
John Holliday. He's on. I invited him a while ago, and he finally got his schedule right, and he dropped me a note he was joining. I thought you might want to introduce him, or...
I don't see I don't see him, but if he wants to raise his hand or wave around or do something, we'll find him and give him a moment. There he is, John Holliday. Good, nice to see you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I have a lot of things I do. I'm a retired architect of about 6 or 8 months ago, and I've had an interest in woodworking ever since the 9th grade back in, 1969 probably. So I do all kinds of things. I have a lathe, but I also build furniture for my kids and things for the house. So, and
Well, sometime bring us around some photos sometime. We'd love to see what you do.
Okay, I will. I have a log of bowls I've been doing bowls now for what, maybe 3 years, 2 years, but I haven't made that many. I'm up to number in my log, number 33.
That's a good
So-
habit. A good habit to number them in a log. I wish I'd acquired that many decades ago. I never did, but it is a good habit.
Yeah, I noticed at some of the craft shows, people number their bowls, so I started doing that, and we'll see how they come. I have photographed them all. I give almost all of them. I give away to somebody, but it's good time. It's addictive. You get out there and make a big mess in the garage, and my wife comes out and says, "It looks like a hamster lives out here," and
Yeah.
But by the way, he just unpacked a very nice lathe. So
yeah, I started out with a Nova 1624 that I bought at Woodcraft off of discontinued floor model. It was, you had to change belts to change the speed, and it was a little shaky. And I knew that in time I was going to want something better. And I went ahead and, while I was still making good money at the architecture firm, I went ahead and bought a nice lathe.
What did you get?
It's a Rikon, what, 7030, I believe.
Oh yeah, a lot of people like that lathe. That's a super lathe. That's the one that has the gap bed and everything.
Yeah, the
So,
bed will slide if you want to do something bigger, and
yeah.
which someday I hope to. Biggest thing I've done so far is about 12 or 13 inches in diameter. So
Nicely engineered lathe.
and I
Okay.
still have tons to learn.
So, join the club on that. I'm going to go to people who are going to show us stuff. George Kuipers, what do you have today?
Okay, a couple of months ago, I bought this book,
Oh, nice book.
and I figured I might as well make something. It's quite intricate, but I made this. It's all hollow inside. I drilled a couple of holes so you can see inside.
What's it for? What is it?
It's totally useless.
Perfect. I like that.
No, it's just fun to make.
How many turnings are involved in that?
Just two.
So two donut pieces that come together?
Yeah, you basically make two channels. Turn one side of the channel, and
That
then
looks-
the other one is off center. So
Yeah, I was going to say that's got to be off-centered. And then you
Yeah.
insert a bottom piece? Is there
yeah,
a flat?
you basically nail it or screw it to a backboard.
What's the flat bottom? What's in there?
That's just a piece of wood.
I thought so.
Oh.
You're inserting a piece there to fill that.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
just sits on the base.
Very cool. And how did you paint it?
Yeah, just by hand. Different colors and just fooling around. Was a lot of fun.
Did you tape those off or just kind of do each square as you went?
No, they were all. I had some tape. It was about an eighth of an inch wide or less. Just taped it up and painted the different squares.
Pinstripers tape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was a lot of fun. No, the walls are about just under a quarter of an inch. It's very light.
Nice work. Another way to make tape like that, I do it. I put the tape down on a steel table because I have a steel table, and then cut it with a knife to the exact width that I want for taping off lines. I do that with blue tape and also with electrical tape.
Yeah, I'd never get the same width though.
Well, you can get close. I don't really want the same width. That's part of it. Okay, is that it from you, George? Any questions for George? Comments?
It was a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
What was the name of that book again, George?
It's Nick Hagar and David Springett. I think he died a couple of months ago. Dave Springett.
Yeah, he died a year ago now.
Or a year ago, yeah.
2 years. I don't know. It was in April, a year or two. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, time goes too fast.
Amazing guy. And that's
Yeah.
about his fourth or fifth book. I have them, most of them here. They're great books.
Yeah, I have a couple of his books.
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
I've edited his articles as well as read his books. I've learned a lot from him. All right, Toby.
Yes. Going to share screen here. I hope it's this one. Yeah, this is it.
We got you.
So a couple of weeks ago, I showed my wood stash, and this big maple burl was sitting there, and I thought, well, I've had that for about 4 or 5 years now. It's time to put it on the lathe. So that's what I did. It's a little hard to see in this picture, but here it is on the lathe. And you can see a little bit of blue down here in the bottom, light blue paint. And that was the chainsaw mark. It was really cut in an odd shape. So I had to make my biggest piece with this sort of ochi shape. But this is on the 22-inch lathe here. And I have my one-way coring system set up. And I'm getting ready here in this picture to take the first core out of it, which is the smallest one. Which isn't actually the smallest one, because then I went and did the smallest one twice again afterwards. But this is the first one I took off the big piece. There you can see it going in. Any questions as I'm going here, I'll be happy to answer. There's the first piece out. And it went fairly quickly. I have the 4 Pro tip on here, and it just cuts right through. No problem with it. Here's the second piece, second core coming out. I think I switched cutters on here. Different size. There's a second piece coming out, laying down there. This is the third piece coming out. And this is about 7/8 of an inch thickness on these pieces, approximately. There's it out. There's my messy shop in the background. There's my wood stove way over here for the winter.
So that's the second core. How many are you going to get? Third?
This is the third core here. And then, on this third core, I had the largest knife that I have on this one-way system, and it still left about a 2-inch tenon down there in the bottom that I couldn't cut any deeper on. So it gave me some problems. That took about 15 minutes of gently prying and rocking and tapping on it, and it finally broke off there. And you can see it's about 2 inches thick. I just couldn't go any farther in there. I didn't want to break the inner one or the outer one, so you had to be very gentle with it. But it finally broke off. And here's the smallest core, the first one I did, and I cored it again. And when I was all done with him, I brought him in the house and showed my wife, and she said, "What about this one? Can you take another core out of that?" And I thought, well, I guess I could. It'd be fairly small, but it does go with the set. So there they are, all lined up. And I have the sizes written down here. The biggest is 18.5 over here, 14.5, 13, 10.5, 8, 6.5, and 5. So that's 7 bowls out of one burl piece. There's the side view of all of them.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Really good.
Have you tried selling those for any more as a complete set?
I never had, this is the most I've ever done. I've done 3 and 4 before. And one I did sell as a set. It was a box elder and had 3 different pieces on it. And I dyed it blue. These are going to be dyed also before I get done with them. And I'll show them eventually. Yeah, I do. If they're going to go as a set, yeah, they should charge a little more for them. I think so.
I think you should sell them as a set, absolutely, and put a nice fat high price on them.
Yeah, Yeah.
Really, I mean, that's, you know, I've seen that. Angelo does things like that. We have one in our show. Mike Mahoney does stuff like that. There's a picture of a set of 7 that he did that's all over the, you know, when you start looking. That's really hard to do. You need to know what the hell you're doing to get there.
Selling that
Yeah.
piecemeal would be like separating identical twins at birth.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It needs to go sell it, as I said, nice big fat number. You got collectors.
Yeah, and you know, if it doesn't sell right away, you know, you just wait off, and if it doesn't sell as a set, eventually you can break it up and sell them. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, you always can.
yeah, put the $1,200 or something, $1,500 on it as a set. Somebody
you
might want it.
You can do what my wife used to do when she was in the art business. If it hasn't sold for a while, raise the price.
That works sometimes. That's about all I got. Any more questions? I'll be happy. Stop.
All right, thank you, Toby. I'll go
You're
back to
welcome.
the gallery view here and see who else. Okay, Mike Peace.
Okay, the latest thing I made is this little ambrosia maple cross grain box. Made this yesterday.
Now, how much clearance are you leaving for motion in that lid? How loose is that?
It's cross grain. I mean, it doesn't quite. It almost rattles, but not quite. But it's intended to be a single, you know, single lift fit. So, but it's got a little bit of tolerance, but it's not sloppy.
Okay. Do you find when you make a box like that that people will put the lid back on so the grain lines up the way you've made it, or do they ignore that?
I don't know. I think I'd show, if I was showing it to somebody, I would show how the grain lines up. But
What kind of wood is that? Maple?
ambrosia maple, yeah, it's got here's the hole where the beetle comes in and leaves this track.
I've made boxes with prominent figure like that and tried to control how the lid goes on with magnets so that it'll only grab in one position. Every other position it throws it off. But people just get confused about that. They don't.
I'm not fussy with magnets. The one thing I saw a video yesterday, I think is on Craft Supply, made me realize I didn't design this perfectly well. I did not need this inner lip right here. This is useless.
Right.
I shouldn't have put that in because it's already got a recess that would fit in there. And it would have made a more functional box had I not put this lip in it.
Can you get it back on the lathe?
I might. I have a tenon. I cleared it away. There might be enough there. I think I'll probably give it a try.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. That's all I got.
All right. Thanks very much. Any more questions for Mike? Comments for Mike? All right, Roger.
Let me see if I can get my share to work here.
Okay.
All right, so there's a cherry bowl that I turned a while back. The horizontal black lines were done with a wire, and the vertical ones I did with a pyrography burner, obviously using my index tool in the lathe. So it didn't come out too bad.
Nice.
This, I wanted to show you guys this because I use my Dux-chuck to turn this little off-center lidded box, and it worked very well. So I know a number of you guys have made those and have seen Jim talk about those a number of times. So anyway, so I utilized this chuck that I made. There's a little hollow form that's probably about 7 inches tall, I guess, maybe 6 inches in diameter. And the reason for the leaf in there is there's a fine crack in the wood. So I tried to disguise that with that leaf. And I think for the most part that disguise worked okay.
Yeah.
And kind of interesting that Toby just showed his nest of bowls. One of the guys from our club purchased a new OneWay coring system a few months ago, and I asked him if he would demonstrate that, and he said, yeah, I would do that. Let me play with it for a little while first. So he said, I'm gonna need some wood. So I gave him a couple really nice cherry logs, and he said, I'll core a few for you for giving me the logs. So he did. So I let them dry for about 9 months, and recently put them back on the lathe and finished them. And my wife has them displayed as you see there, and they come out pretty good.
Nice.
And finally, there's a hollow form that I turned a while back. A friend of mine gave me a chunk of walnut that he had, and I like the feathering in it. So I hollowed that out, and we have it sitting around here. So,
How hollow is that?
yeah, the walls are probably about 3/8 or so, I
All the way
guess.
down?
Yeah,
All the-
all the way down. Yeah.
What's your rig? What's your setup?
Well, at the time I did this one, because I just recently sold it, I had a Jameson system, but I actually sold that one, and I got one of Trent Bosch's. And for me, the Trent Bosch is working better than the Jameson. Not to say anything negative about Jameson, because it's a good machine, but for how I use one, the Bosch seems to be better for me. So that's what I'm using now. But this one was done with Lyles.
Does that include either one of those laser pointers that help you know where you were at, or some monitor trickery?
Actually, with the setup I've got now, I made my own laser setup, and I made my own camera setup. So I bought a couple aluminum bars to make the arm that goes vertically and horizontally, and then I mounted the laser to it, and then I've got a separate mount. I bought a little camera for less than $20 and an old TV on a marketplace for 10, and got my camera set up and works great. So
Very cool. And how hard was it to get that feather figure to be so shiny and clean and bright?
now I normally use an oil-based urethane, and then I buff it after it's sat for a few days, and came out nice.
What's your sanding sequence?
I'm sorry.
What's your sanding sequence?
What I generally do is I will sand to 80 grit, and then a lot of the pieces, I'll put a coat of polyurethane on it and let it sit overnight, and then go through the grits again, starting at 80 and going up to 400. By taking that approach, for me, that really raises that grain tremendously. That helps me get a ultimate very nice finish.
Did you try and sand inside that thing as well?
Actually, no, I did not. It's just got the tool finish on the inside.
But do you finish the inside?
No.
You don't
No, I put oil on it, but I do not do anything beyond that.
But you do put a coat of varnish in there.
I do, yes. Yep.
Questions for Roger?
Roger, is that natural stippling, or did you put the stippling on the right side there?
I'm not seeing.
I did that. I forgot all about that, but yes, I did that. Yep.
And how did you do that?
I did that with I believe this one I did with a pyrography burner. It's a little ball on the end, and sometimes I'll do it that way. Sometimes I'll use a little Dremel tool and stipple it. But I believe this one I did with that pyrography burner.
Very cool.
Okay, thanks, John.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see how I can get back to the views I need to be. Yeah. Okay, we're down to you, Bowman.
Thank you.
And then before you get started, a little admin here. Let me see what I'm trying to do here. I probably forgot to turn on remote recording, so I have a recording running on my own computer. And I'm also going to get out of here and go down to the train station so I can be there with the boxes are all in my car. So I'm gonna leave you to end the meeting when you're done at 11 o'clock.
John, I started the cloud recording a couple minutes at 10 because I thought maybe you were delayed. So it's recording on the cloud as well, and you can grab it after.
Okay, good. Then I'm going to stop the local record. Yeah, now it is. Okay.
It never did stop, John, because I was co-host. So
Okay, good. I'm glad of that. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it with you. Because I'm going to go to the train station. I need to get there and unload the boxes for everybody.
hey, okay, and I'll be in touch with you. I think I'll be up Sunday and I'll try to pick up my stuff.
Okay, I'll be here. I'll have it at my house.
Okay.
Okay. Go for it.
Guys, last week we talked about, at the end of the show, we talked about my challenge with boring down, hollowing out a vase, a tall one, and my Forstner walking to the side. I'll show you what happened. I want to show you, I think I learned this from Jim Dux. I got tired. I figured as I was getting older, my wrist is going to give out. So I attached a 1-inch piece of MDF, 8 inches in diameter, screwed it fast to the tailstock wheel. And boy, do I love that. One of the reasons I like it is, and I think this is part of the problem I had with the boring out with the Forstner, was I can do a steadier, slower drill in. So I'm going to start by showing you, to get on conversation. This is the two vessels. The one on the left, which is now an oblique cut. Thank you, Sarah. I still think of that comment about the epoxy one that I did that way. I began in center, but I realized about halfway down on this 10-inch blank that my Forstner, which was on an extension bit at that time, was starting to wobble. And I didn't know why or what, and I had some theories. As I discovered, because the one on the right is also cut from the same blank of wood, it's the other half. There is a knot and weird grain configuration in it, and I wonder if that was the problem. Now, I talked with Doug Reeser this past week about this, because I had the right-hand blank ready to go, but I didn't want to screw it up. So he said, well, why don't you drill with a smaller Forstner rather than your final cut and see how that goes? I said, I don't like that, because Forstners don't like, normally my experience, they don't like to follow a previous hole. They want to be able to get their bit in. So I went at it again, and let me go back to, let's go to this one. So I went back at it again, and I went at it with the full. What I do is I mic the narrowest part, and then to be safe, I added basic, I guess, 1/2 inch, because I allowed a 1/4 inch wall. I didn't want to come through the sides on this. And I steadied once the bit got on the extension, I steadied it as I drove it down through, and it seemed to hang center the whole way to the bottom. So I had a lot better experience with this. This is, the best I can tell, cork oak. I think we got it from Barnes Arboretum through the Delaware Club, which I'm a member. We have a good relationship with them, and every time they take down an exotic tree, which Mrs. Barnes got in the beginning of the last century, we get some, and I found this on my pile. I'm slowly trying to work through my pile. So guys, what do you do when you have a vase like this? Is actually the finished size is 8.5 tall, and it's 3.5 at the bottom. What do you do when you want to hollow out the center to max that you can go?
I use a 1-inch twist bit with a Morse taper.
Mike, that's interesting. I have one of those. What worries me is I always had trouble getting it absolutely centered up at the beginning point. And I grabbed that out thinking I was going to do the same thing this time. But they don't have a point.
Yeah, hey, Jim, you're right. That's the problem with the twist bits. All of them have really a flat across the bottom. And
That's
so
right.
they want to walk on you really bad. The only way you can stop that is to start with a smaller hole to get it centered, to get it set straight. So if you're going to drill a 1-inch hole, you start with a 1/4 inch, then you go to 3/8, then you go to a half, and then you go to your inch.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the second thing that what Mike touched on is the shorter the distance from the cutting edge of the bit to your tailstock, the greater support you have. So you have to go back and look at your drill chuck, or whether you have a set like I do that goes directly into the tailstock, which is the twist 1-inch twist bits also do. There's a company out on the West Coast that's making a stout bore system that you probably should take a look at if you're going to drill holes that deep.
That's as typical for me to drill this deep. Now, what do you do if you want it larger than 1 inch? I guess you can guess twist bits that go larger, but I got the 1 inch. It's only 9, is it 7 maybe? It won't go the whole way down. So I either have to get another bit in to go further, or if I want it like this one, I was up to 1 3/16, I think.
My response would be to drill from both ends, meet in the middle. Nobody sees the middle. If they don't line up, it's not the end of the world.
Thank you. But then they see at the bottom where you glued it in, it looks like you made a funnel.
Not if you do it right. If you cut out a plug that's the same size as where your base is, so that you normally have an indentation there, or sometimes so it sits flat. You cut that hole right at the edge. And you'll never see the fact that they went in from the bottom. Or you go the other way, is you use a plug of a contrasting wood so everybody knows you went in from both directions.
Yep. I suspect that what that'll mean is I'll drill out the left side and then drill out the right side of a vessel. I'm just kidding. This was successful for me. And Kai might be able to tell me this. Infinity Tool catalog is selling it. I hate to say it this way, Fag-Mag Forstner bit.
They're really good.
Beefy. It has some good design features in it, and it has the Morse taper 2 to mount it on, so you don't even need to use a Jacob's chuck. Anybody use that? Are they pleased with it? They have heavy duty extensions for them too.
Yeah, the Fag-Mag stuff is excellent out of Germany, and buy it with the 1/2 inch. Don't buy the 1/4 inch or 3/8. Buy the 1/2 inch shank. I think that was part of your, I don't know what the size of your shank was when you were drilling so far, but the Fag-Mag, I don't know. I have a number of their Forstner bits, and they're excellent. I think they're excellent.
Hey,
I might add about the Forstner bits. They were originally designed to be driven by hand. And the inventor of them was named Forstner, and he was a gunsmith in Ogden, Utah. And the first manufacturer of the bit was Sam Colt, who he convinced it was useful. And they were used originally for drilling out behind the lock for the springs to go in a flintlock rifle or a caplock rifle. And they were always barefaced. They never had a point, because you could then place them down and start them. And a trick, I have a whole set that I just took and ground made them what you call bareface. And then you can start them on a circle you scribe with a set of dividers if the surface is level. And the other thing is diameter that everybody has been harping about. The stiffness of a round bar goes up by a power of 4 as the diameter increases. So if you double the diameter, it's uh, 2 times 2 is 4 times 8, it's 16 times less liable to wobble.
You're talking about Forstners. If I go to 1/2-inch shank, I have a lot stronger chance of going straight. So
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
One thing too, Jim, how many inches of wood have you drilled with that bit? Just like lathe tools, they do get blunt, and a Forstner bit, if it's blunt slightly on one side or the other, it's guaranteed to walk, just like your bandsaw blade. And it doesn't take much silica in the wood to blunt a Forstner bit. So I sharpen mine and hone them if I want them to go straight.
I've been starting to use the diamond hone on the cutting edge. I don't know about the perimeter. Do you sharpen the perimeter teeth as well, Bert?
I don't sharpen the perimeter. I just sharpen the cutting edge, and I go very slowly. I'll go like 1/8 of an inch every 30 seconds. I don't drill very fast when I'm drilling deep, but I make sure that the cutting edge is sharp and the same on both sides. And that's very, very slight differences will cause it to wander. Just like a bandsaw blade. If you have one bad tooth, your blade will wander. Well, the same with a Forstner. If you got a bad side, it'll cut straight 1 inch or 2 inches, no problem. But when you get out 7 or 8 inches, that little bit of wander is like a part of a degree, and it will, if it's not sharp, and go really, really slowly.
Thank you. I never thought about checking the quality of the shape on either side and the sharpness. I just up and honed them a little bit. Is there any other way to sharpen them? I tried it on my CBN wheel, and I think I ended up chewing off a tooth or something. I don't know. It was a problem. So
I never sharpen a Forstner from the outside. I always do it from the inside, and I'll do the periphery with a Dremel tool with a little tiny round grinding wheel on it, and I'll dress that wheel on a stone first so that it's round. And then I do the cutters with a file. I use a warding file.
Sure. Yep.
I use a sanding disc mounted in the lathe and spin it, and I hold the drill bit onto the sanding disc, and it's basically like a powered hone.
Well, I obviously have most of my Forstner bits are all Steel-X, the China one sold by Amazon, and et cetera, et cetera. So I haven't invested a lot, but I'm about to jump into the fag mag. I always hate to say it wrong, but that's a major investment, and I don't want to ruin it. Back in the day, I used my Forstners for everything from drilling through wall studs and all that. Well, now I'm finessing and turning, so I want a good set of Forstners if that's the right tool.
I bought a Forstner bit. I think it was a German-made one because I had to drill 300 little barrels. I had to drill 3 holes in 300 barrels, and I think it cost me $27 for the 3/4 inch Forstner bit. I'm still using it, and that I've had that for 4 or 5 years. It cost me a lot of money, but it was German-made, and it's absolutely excellent. It's true every time, and I've thrown away probably 6 or Chinese ones in the meantime, but the German one I use for when I want it accurate.
Was that the Colt Maxi-Cut system?
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure what the brand name on it was, but I remember that the Forstner bit was a German steel, German or Austrian, and it's just amazing.
Hey, I'll kill this share then, but I want to show you and ask you a question. When I put this blank on the lathe, there was a little indication that there might have been it was literally smaller than my little finger, indication that there might have been some ingrowth. When I turned it, lo and behold, it had a major piece in the middle there. Let me see if right there, doggone it, was a big old black, which I promptly filled its cracks with black epoxy. But I thought, what the heck? And then down here, if you look at the grain at the bottom, it's almost like a burl grain. So I don't know what was going on with this piece of wood. I was pleased on the first chunk. I managed to get some of the green. Leave some of the green from right under the bark. So I loved it. Anyways, let me kill this, then we can, let me stop sharing. I'm sorry. Then we can have a conversation.
That knot will affect your cut.
Yeah, no,
I mean, you know that, but
yes, yeah.
it totally, I mean, it's the Faulkner, it's off balance, right? It's going to migrate. It's going to wobble, whatever word you want to do it. But I don't need to tell you that. You just learned that. So,
well, I knew that. And so that's part of why I was hanging on to keep it. I put my glove on my left and held it as well as I could in the extension to get through that area nice and straight. And so it worked. So
the other one liner I have with it when I'm doing that on the lathe is that the travel on the tailstock's only 4 inches. So that's my max depth. I know they sell a bunch of extenders. I have not had a lot of success with the extenders. So to the prior speaker, drill from the other end. And if you're going more than 4 inches, if you're looking to be dialed in, huge shank and max 4 inches. But that's me. I don't have enough experience. So
well, I really resist the idea of drilling from the other end because for the real reason is, first off, nobody's finger is going to go down 7 inches, 8. They can't even hardly see it down there. And if I want to hide it, I'll put some black gesso in there, you know, and you're not going to see it. So I just want to get through as far as a finger is, you know, because that's where everybody sticks and they can't reach further, especially on a 1 inch or 1 3/16 hole. So I just want to get it clean that far.
Why don't you just drill a hole and then come after it with a scraper?
Well, I thought somebody would say that.
Jim,
Yeah.
when I
Hey, Jim,
turn,
why do you bother to drill it all the way? Nobody can get their finger down there. Just drill for 4 inches and stop.
No. It's got to be drilled down there because you'll detect it if it's not. And that's the other question. I try to leave, say, 1 inch to 3/4 at the bottom so it has some sitting weight.
Jim, how
Yeah.
long is the shank on your Forstner bit?
The first one is about 3.5. That's typical of what the ones I have.
Right.
Now I have some longer ones, but they're bigger than I don't use them.
Because when I'm drilling with a Forstner bit, as a previous speaker said, there's only a certain length on your tailstock spindle. Is when you've drawn it out, just release your tailstock, push your drill further in, and you still got the length of your tailstock to go once you start drilling again, until you get to the end of your shank on your Forstner bit. But if I really want a big deep hole and a fairly wide hole, I have 3 twist drills with a Morse taper, which are 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, and 1 3/4 inches. And they have a shank on them, a twist shank of 9 inches long.
Hey, I only go half of my depth in before I pull it back. Otherwise, the drill gets stuck in there with all the shaping.
As you push it, as you drill it, keep extracting it, because if you don't, you will get jammed. But then when you've got to the point of your tailstock thread, release your tailstock and push it into the hole, tighten it, and then drill again.
That's the way I'm doing. But the hole's got to be large enough to get past either the chuck or the rod. I guess I have a 1 inch one, 1 inch. What do you call it? The tailstock screw. Hey, by the way, it's after 11, and I'm going to get in trouble with John if I let this go on long, particularly if I'm the guy yappering away and I'm supposed to be shutting the meeting down. Hey, guys, thanks. That was very helpful. Actually, I think you're steering me on the right way about some things, and yeah. Okie doke.
See you next week.
See you all.
Take care, everybody.
See you.
Yep.
Bye, Michael. Bye, Bert.
Wood shop. Thank got for wood.